Once you reach a budget threshold of at least $2,000 a day where your YouTube campaigns are consistently hitting your target CPA, you're ready to begin advanced optimization techniques. But first, let's talk about some of the key reporting metrics you need to be mindful of as you assess the data within your account so you can make sound decisions. Number one is bidding. Google's machine learning bids on inventory using a CPM bid for your campaigns. In traditional media buying, cheaper CPMs can sometimes be a good thing, getting the same traffic at a cheaper rate. With YouTube, this isn't always the case. Think of CPMs as tiers, with the premium YouTube traffic being the most expensive. So for example, if you see campaigns performing poorly from a target CPA standpoint, the first thing I recommend checking is your CPM. If your CPM has decreased significantly, this may be a sign that the algorithm has pivoted your campaign into new channels, audiences, or demographics, causing your performance to fluctuate. Sometimes in these instances, your answer is to simply do nothing. If your conversion tracking is on point, the machine learning will see that it's not meeting your target CPA goals, and in most cases, it'll pivot back to the audiences that performed better in the past. This can happen if a campaign is scaled too quickly, and can also happen randomly as YouTube explores new audiences in an effort to expand and find more volume over your current audience. The average CPM we've seen on the most successful and scalable campaigns is in the $15 to $35 CPM range. Another curveball, and one thing to keep a close eye on, is placement performance. Let's talk about placements. If you click on the Content tab on the left column of Google's UI and then click Placements, and then finally see where your ads appeared, Google will give you a breakdown of where your ad spend has been distributed at a placement and channel level, as well as your CPA and ROI for each. From this view, you can see performance on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis at the placement level. As you scale your campaigns, it's important to keep a close eye on this placements report. As you begin to scale more aggressively, you'll start to notice certain placements that perform well and some that perform poorly. One thing that's important to consider is only playing the long game here in terms of mindset and only pausing placements that have a certain amount of ad spend. In previous years, managing performance via placements and running YouTube campaigns that are exclusively targeted at high volume placements was a viable strategy utilized by many of the top advertisers. If you use this strategy, it can help maintain profitability with lower budget campaigns. But this is a double-edged sword in the sense that it can potentially kneecap your campaign's ability to scale by not recruiting new placements that the machine learning feels that are likely to perform well. Today, the algorithm performs best when you let the machine learning make the decisions on your behalf. Our team only pauses placements that perform exceptionally poorly, specifically placements that don't generate conversions with $500 or more in ad spend. Now let's talk about the YouTube.com placement. Keeping an eye on the YouTube.com placement is important. Most advertisers never look into the placements view, and even fewer understand what the YouTube.com placement actually is. The YouTube.com placement is actually a display placement positioned at the top right corner of YouTube. Here's an example. This placement is often misunderstood by advertisers. It's technically a display placement, but automatically added to your YouTube campaigns. Now, remember earlier in the course where I mentioned adding custom thumbnails to your YouTube campaigns? Here's why. When you set up your videos at the channel level, you have an option to add a custom thumbnail to your video. When you add a custom thumbnail to your YouTube video, this is the image that shows up in that YouTube.com placement I just mentioned. Keep an eye on this placement. It's actually considered to be a low quality placement for YouTube campaigns, but in some rare cases it does perform well. If you find that this particular placement or any other placement is performing exceptionally poorly, you can easily block those in the Performance tab. Here's a bonus tip. The more tenured Google reps tend to encourage advertisers to add the below placement exclusions as they reduce historically low converting YouTube.com's display spend and mobile app spend placements. So if you like, you can proactively block these placements in your campaigns from day one. Check out the strategy guide from this section, and below you'll find some of the placements we like to proactively block that typically chew up a lot of spend and often underperform. Let's talk a bit more about custom thumbnails. If you're an experienced marketer, you know how much a single image can sway performance of a campaign. The same is true for YouTube campaigns. When you upload your videos to YouTube, you have the ability to add a custom thumbnail to your video. With YouTube, custom thumbnails are utilized when your ad is displayed on YouTube.com, like I mentioned above. It's going to show that custom thumbnail as an ad image. And having the right image there can make or break your campaign when serving to YouTube.com specifically. So consider these factors. It's important to be mindful of the thumbnail image you upload to your video. Rather than just selecting any thumbnail image, a strategic move that you can make is to test different images using the same video. So rather than loading your video once to the YouTube channel, load it up 5 times, each of those times utilizing a different thumbnail image. Then when you test your campaign, recruit and utilize all 5 of those videos and carefully monitor the results to see which thumbnail is performing the best. Here's an advanced thumbnail hack. If you're bringing a campaign to YouTube that's previously been successful elsewhere, create a file of your top performing thumbnails from your other ad platforms and utilize those via YouTube. So if you have the ability to test your campaign on an ad platform that primarily uses images to drive traffic, platforms like Facebook, native ads, Twitter, use those as a sandbox to test those images at small budgets, then take the images that have the highest click-through rates and the highest conversion rates and bring those to YouTube as thumbnails. Even if you have a mature YouTube campaign that's spending more than $5,000 a day, it can be useful to introduce new thumbnails to your campaign for an increase in conversion rates. Test this and measure your target CPAs for each video and each thumbnail. Here's how to add audiences to your campaigns. Adding audience segments to your campaigns can be a great way to tap into users who have affinities for your category or users that are in the market for your product or service. Here's how to get started with audience targeting. When our team initially launches campaigns, we like to leave campaigns as open-ended as possible in regards to targeting. The thought process behind this is if we have a wide audience and our campaign is hitting the target CPA goals, it's much easier to scale as we increase our daily budgets. This could be the difference between a campaign that spends $10,000 a day and a campaign that spends $50,000 a day. If, for example, we're launching a campaign for a beauty product for women, I would start by targeting women who are 25 years of age or older with no additional targeting. This gives the machine learning ample room to explore a wide range of ages, interests, affinities, YouTube channels, and users that have shown Google that they're in the market for those kinds of products. Google defines users as in the market for a product based on things like their search history, websites they've recently visited, and/or YouTube videos they recently watched. If a user recently searched for makeup, visited Sephora.com, and has a Gmail inbox full of activity from beauty companies, and on top of that watched a beauty tutorial about how to apply makeup, Google would bucket this user as in the market for beauty products and potentially as an affinity user for Google's beauty audiences. Now, as my campaign begins to spend and test, I'll deep dive performance data on a daily basis, looking at things like the best age ranges, channels, audiences, data segments, things that individually are consistently hitting my target CPA goals. Then, if I reach a point of resistance where my campaign begins to perform poorly, I can remove poorly performing audiences and I can focus exclusively on audiences that hit my ROI goals. Alternatively, if I reach a point of resistance in the sense that my campaign just isn't performing well, meaning the past 5 to 7 days it isn't coming in close to my daily budget and/or successfully hitting my target CPA goal, I can then begin to rebuild and pivot my strategy, leaning into custom audience segments. Some YouTube advertisers will utilize these audiences from day one, but it's important to keep in mind that there's no perfect strategy in regards to targeting and audiences for YouTube. There are 2 thought processes you can utilize in this stage. Number 1 is starting with an open audience and minimal targeting with the goal of developing a campaign that can scale to high volumes. As your campaign gathers data over a multi-week period, you'll begin to identify pockets of audiences that perform very well. If you're consistently seeing pockets that perform poorly, you can then remove those pockets from your campaign. Our team has had the most success when we remove targeting campaigns, not when we add new targeting to existing campaigns. We only take away and we never add. Number 2 is to start with a highly targeted audience to protect your ROI. Some YouTube advertisers prefer to start with this strategy with a highly targeted campaign to keep that ROI protected from day one. So if you feel, for example, that you know your customer avatar, have data from other platforms that confirms it, or you have a mature business with a niche product, this can be a great way to cut through the noise and focus on targeting demos and audiences that have a strong likelihood of performing well. However, this is another double-edged sword in the sense that your campaign will likely become profitable earlier, but may run into trouble as you try to scale later on. Your campaign may also become exhausted from a volume standpoint faster versus having a more open targeting approach. So using a more targeted approach may also help you generate conversions more rapidly. And once your campaign has generated a substantial amount of conversions, you always have the option to create a new campaign that's more openly targeted, because the existing campaign and the data from the machine learning will be more confident in terms of what that customer avatar looks like. It's important to note that both strategies can be effective and depending on your goals can be potentially utilized at different times. An alternate strategy that some YouTube buyers utilize is to use affinity or in the market audiences early in the account's development and treat them as training wheels to help the account achieve an affordable $15 to $35 CPM. The rationale for this is not grounded in conversion rate benefits of tapping into like-minded audiences like we discussed above. It's simply to regulate the cost of the traffic in the early stages so the account doesn't zigzag so much in terms of the traffic tiers that it tests. For example, an affiliate advertiser for Medicare knows that they want cheap traffic and has learned from peers and top competitors that the CPM should be around $20. If they launched a campaign without any audiences on max conversions, as many advertisers do, they might have $5 CPMs on day one, but this could be from YouTube display inventory. And on day two, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction, hitting all the top tier placements for a $40 CPM. Then slowly over that first week, the campaigns will find an equilibrium around that $15 to $35 CPM. If they launch with some of these basic affinity audiences, they'll still zigzag to some degree, but the audiences will reduce the standard deviation of their CPMs, likely to help stabilize their learning curve over those critical first 7 to 10 days of a new campaign launch. Now let's talk about target CPA goals, or TCPA. One of the biggest questions I get from new YouTube ad buyers is how to determine a target CPA that best suits their campaign. A good target CPA goal is one that keeps your campaign from losing money while simultaneously allowing the machine learning to adequately gather conversion data to increase its confidence in your campaign. A good rule of thumb to determine your target CPA is to analyze your eCPA results when you're in the maximum conversion stage of your campaign. If, for example, you launch a YouTube campaign using max conversions as your goal and successfully reach the milestone of spending $1,000 a day for 5 to 7 days in a row, and your eCPA, or cost to acquire each customer, is coming in at $100, then a $100 target CPA goal would likely generate you similar results as you scale. If your campaign is profitable or breaking even at this $100 eCPA, then using this number as your initial target CPA goal puts you in a good position to gather more data, let the machine learning do its thing, and then potentially pivot to a more profitable TCPA down the road. Keep in mind, you can always lower your target CPA at any time, or you can even launch new campaigns with lower target CPAs. If your lower target CPA goals are not spending your daily budget, or they're struggling to hit your goals, it may be a sign that your target CPA is too low and that you need to raise it. If you find yourself in this position, you have a few different levers that you can pull to optimize your campaign. Number one is simply adjust your target CPA. Number two would be introducing new videos and thumbnails to your campaign. And number three, you can adjust your targeting, demos, audience, and channels. You can deploy things like day parting on your campaigns, only running certain days or hours of the day that the data is shown to perform best. And you can also optimize your website, landing page experience to increase conversion rates. Day parting is a mechanism you can apply to any YouTube ads campaigns. Day parting gives you the option to only run your ads during a certain time of day, certain times of the week, or both. There are two thought processes in terms of when to utilize this feature. Number one would be early in your campaign. If you have data from other platforms that shows your campaigns perform best during certain days a week or certain hours, you can toggle your YouTube campaigns to run exclusively during those times or days. Number two is you can go through the process of developing your campaign through max conversions and even into the target CPA stage. Once you've accumulated about $25,000 in spend, you can then look at Google's data to determine the metrics from a day parting standpoint that makes sense to adjust and apply to your campaign. This can be a great way to take advantage of days or times where your campaign has increased conversion rates. But like many targeting methods, this can be a double-edged sword in the sense that limiting your delivery can make it tougher to scale as your campaign grows. If you run long form ads that are, say, longer than 10 minutes, we find that early morning hours tend to convert abnormally well as viewers have more time to pause what they're doing and watch the entire video, which, as we discovered earlier, increases the probability of converting by a large margin. So if you run long videos, or if your page has some element of a VSL on it, you may consider paying close attention to your account's performance on an hourly basis and implementing day parting to prioritize top performing hours. Now let's dig into custom affinity campaigns. Custom affinity campaigns are a great way to reach audiences based on their interest and habits. Advertisers can target people with more specific browsing behavior by adding in specific keywords and URLs that correspond with the specific category. For example, let's say you have a new wellness supplement targeted towards older women with high household incomes. You may want to test custom affinity targeting keywords such as bloating, weight loss, skincare, and add URLs of some relevant competitors or informational websites that your targeted customer is likely to frequent. These inputs guide the algorithm to prioritize people that tend to browse websites containing these keywords or themes, or frequent these competitor or peer websites directly. However, there's no free lunch in digital advertising. The more granular the targeting, the more expensive the CPM or CPV. My advice is to test it for yourself and see if the uplift in conversion rate warrants the higher price point per impression or per view. Custom intent audiences are a bit different. So similar to custom affinity audiences or custom intent audiences. This is the second of the two options in the custom audiences tab. This allows you to target viewers based on their Google search history over the past 30 days. Sounds pretty cool, right? This is a good option for YouTube and display advertisers promoting high ticket items that have a pretty niche audience that they're trying to reach. This targeting strategy can cost 2 to 3 times more on an impression basis than regular targeting, but can often result in 5 times or more increase in conversion rates because of the higher traffic quality that it generates. So for example, let's say you're a mortgage advertiser targeting a $750 CPA on YouTube. You're looking to reach people in a key time, a time-sensitive period in their mortgage journey. It could make sense to pay a higher CPM to refine your targeting to people that have been clearly looking for a mortgage in the past month. However, if you're targeting a $20 cost per call for, say, Medicare, where you're likely to reach a target audience via demo targeting alone, you'd be better off avoiding these rigorous low funnel audiences as they'd likely inflate your CPMs higher than what would make sense. Now last, let's talk about optimized targeting. Look at this as an audience expansion for an already successful campaign. So what this is going to do, it's going to use your existing targeting to model and to explore different audiences that Google thinks will lead to conversions. And the more seasoned your account is, the better it's going to perform. So this is going to unlock more volume, and it's a nice option when you have a potent audience but limited volume and or your campaign stops converting well. I've seen these rescue struggling campaigns, but I always start with these off with new accounts. But be careful, our team has noticed that when activated, this feature does not always respect the demo targeting you put in place. The machine learning will usually figure out over time what performs best and what doesn't, but it's an important note that by adding this feature, it essentially removes the guardrails from your campaigns to an extent. For example, you may have 35 plus females and it'll test other demographics it feels can find conversions regardless if you selected them or not. I wouldn't recommend starting off with this. In order for this to work, you should have enough conversion data in your account to warrant using it. If you have a broad offer that performs well on a wide audience demographic, this can be a great feature to potentially utilize. But keep in mind, we have seen this method waste money, and based on our experience, it rarely performs well in new accounts.